So I recently bought Three Jokers because it seemed like it would be a good book. You know, it's about Joker, it's got a cool premise of there being multiple Jokers, and it's by Geoff Johns, so I would assume that this is a great book. There are 3 issues, I think, so after each one I'll share my thoughts on what I think and what's going on. Here's hoping it's great, I guess. So, issue 1. We start off with Batman coming home. I'm not sure if it was a long day or he's just got an injury and he's looking over all his other injuries. I assume he is, otherwise Bane just breaks his back regularly and he's running to like Joker several times in one night, so I assume he's just looking over all his other wounds. So then it sets up the 3 Jokers, the first one being the criminal, and it shows us Bruce's parents dying, so I assume that Joker is the guy who killed Bruce's parents, kind of like the first Batman movie. So he's Joe Chill, basically, that's why he's called the criminal, because it applies to his specific thing against Bruce Wayne. Then we switch to Barbara, and we take a look at her wound, and then we're shown the comedian who shot her and put her in a wheelchair and is the one that's like, oh, it's too late for me, Batman, and all that. And like, I just wanted to show that one bad day could do this. You know, he's like the kind of sympathetic one, I guess you could say. He's the one with the sad backstory, essentially. Then it shows us Jason Todd fighting some Joker's goons, trying to track him down. The Joker that killed him is called the Clown, which is definitely the weakest of the 3 names, because it doesn't really seem to have anything to do with what he actually did like the other 2. Criminal is Joe Chill, the comedian is a comedian. The Clown is just always the Clown, 3 C's and all that. But 3 Jokers have showed up all at once, and Batman doesn't know which one's the real one, so they're going to find out. Batgirl comes to assist, and while they're there, Red Hood tries to interrogate one of the victims, who is actually a criminal himself. And it seems like they were basically performing experiments to make new Jokers, which there's probably a lot of, more than 3. Eventually they get jumped by the Clown. They beat the Clown. Jason is extremely on edge for obvious reasons, plus Joker's provoking him. He also seems to straight up kill the midget guy, which Batman doesn't seem too upset about for some reason, but I guess he just knows that it can't be helped. It was practically an accident. But then Batman decides to leave Joker with Barbara and Jason, and guess what? The Joker provokes it, and this time, Jason just shoots him. Jason just shoots him in the head and kills him, and he's like, well, I hope that was the right one, because the whole point is that there were 3, like, it definitely seemed like the one to kill Jason from his perspective, obviously, because he's saying things that only Joker that killed him would say, like, oh, it's not about you, it's about him. I remember what you said when I killed you. Like, it's obviously him. But then why is he confused? Well, I guess the other Jokers could have given him that information, but I'm sure the way he said it made it clear to Jason in some way that it was definitely him. But yeah, I love this first issue. I love that it's kind of emulating the Killing Joke style of, you know, the way Alan Moore does panels and all that, but it's just really good. Like, the art's amazing. It's just so perfect. Granted, I feel like Jason looks a little bit weird, but he usually does with the way he's drawn. I guess it's just kind of his thing. He's drawn a bit like he's evil, shrouded in shadow and all that. Again, though, it is pretty weird that Jason just kills a guy and Batman doesn't seem to care. And again, it's weird that at the end, he's like, well, I hope that was the real Joker. Like, of course it was the real Joker, quote unquote, the one that killed you. Like, you just said, like, Barbara, don't you remember what he did to you? And obviously that wasn't true. It's going to be the other guy that did that, but still. Why is he even doubting himself? Like, is this supposed to be a cliffhanger? Like, we know that there's 3 Jokers. They were physically shown to us. We were even set up with flashbacks showing us which one did what. So obviously, there's no... Just, what are we supposed to be wondering, you know? Like, what is this cliffhanger supposed to be? It is kind of crazy how one of the Jokers died, though. But I am interested to see what happens, though. So, let's move on. Another really great issue. It starts with the comedian going home to his family. Except it turns out that it's just a mannequin. Which is funny because in his mind, his family doesn't even like him and doesn't even want him to be there and hates him and wants to run away. So I guess it's him imagining what life would be like if the whole report of his family being dead was a mistake. It's not like he can pretend that he's not the Joker, but he can pretend that his family is still alive, basically. Then there's this moment with the other Joker later where he's so serious a lot of the time, and when he laughs, he's like, well, it hurts to laugh. Because he seems like the more serious, like, OG Joker. And he kind of seems like, you know, like Walking Phoenix's Joker a little bit. I'm pretty sure I do remember a story like that, but it's been a while since I read it. Because, obviously, a lot of the famous stories of Joker are meant to be assigned to these three Jokers, and anything that can't be explained is probably going to be assigned to, oh, it was some other Joker. Other than that, though, I did like how there's this whole comparison between Barbara and Jason. Barbara got paralyzed and she ended up being stronger for having that happen to her, whereas Jason just went down this awful dark path, and Batman's like, well, I didn't really talk to him and like really open up to him because I thought he would be like, you, Barbara, and Barbara's like, oh. And Batman is taking like the news that Jason shot him in the head rather lightly. I don't know if it's because of something that's going to be revealed in the next issue, or if it's something that's like, he understands why Jason would do that, and he's like, well, I can't really have any qualms with that. It might explain why he was acting so blasé in the last issue. But Jason tracks down where the Jokers are through one of his men. He gets to the pool, and there's like a bunch of Jokers all being made in the pool, and he gets kidnapped, and surprise, surprise, he gets battered over the face with a crowbar by the Joker, and the Joker says, like, haha, I'm doing this again, even though it really shouldn't be him. I assume this is just like, oh, is it this guy, the true Joker that did everything, or something like that? It definitely feels like it's gonna want to end with some kind of vagueness, or even that, oh, it's the comedian, he's the real Joker. I also like how Jason gets the same question as he did in the last issue about his red hood, because before he was like, well, I'm gonna wear the mask of my killer to kill him. And then this time he's like, well, it's a joke. It's basically the same answer as before, but he puts it in a different way, where Joker's like, oh, you and me were not so different, which is, yeah, I got that. But yeah, Bruce and Barbara find him after he's got his face smashed in. Well, he's actually not that bad, to be honest. He's kind of okay. He is pretty traumatized though, so they have to take him back. And Barbara has this talk with him about her getting over her trauma, and they do a little kiss. It just seems to be because Jason's so pitiable though, he's just so broken and sad, and Barbara just kisses him to cheer him up, it seems like. Or it's more like they're both like wallowing in their despair about what Joker did to them. It's kind of interesting, but you know, I don't think it'll go anywhere, I don't think it should go anywhere. I think it's just showing how vulnerable they are in that moment, talking to each other with their similar circumstances. Meanwhile, this guy was killed. The fingerprints point to Joe Chill. Batman doesn't tell anyone except Barbara, so he goes to see Joe Chill, who's supposedly in prison. He's not there, he's got cancer, so he's transferred somewhere else. So it definitely seems to be setting up that the guy that they got obviously isn't the real Joe Chill, and Joe Chill is the Joker, the criminal. At the very end of the issue, the two Jokers like kidnap Joe Chill, and that's the cliffhanger. So let's see what happens in the final issue. So I do like how this ends. It starts with Jason and Bruce butting heads as per usual as they're trying to figure out what's going on with the Jokers, and Bruce is hiding something. Jason knows he is, but Barbara's like, no, there's no way you would hide something like that from us. Bruce finds Joe Chill's letters that he wrote for him, but he never sent, which is pretty interesting. Apparently he's through and through a changed man, but he'd never had the confidence to send them off. They end up in the movie theater because of course they do, but also because one of the Jokers actually knows that Bruce Wayne is Bruce Wayne, and that's the whole reason Joe Chill is even involved and was kidnapped. So when they get there, they're basically playing Joe Chill's confession tape of why he murdered the Waynes, and basically it comes down to he hated them because they were rich, and he just kind of freaked out. He didn't see Bruce, so when he saw Bruce he was like, oh shit, and then he ran off. So the Joker's plan, by the way, the criminal Joker, is that he wants to drop him in the vat of acid and make him like the new ultimate Joker. I'm not even sure if he knows why, because obviously the comedian knows why, as is revealed by the end of this. So Batman fights the criminal while Barbara and Jason fight the comedian, and it's a very cool fight with lots of fire, lots of back and forth. It's good, what can I say about that? Batman saves Joe Chill from falling into a vat of acid, and Joe Chill's like, I know who you are. Which initially I thought that meant he knows he's Bruce, but he doesn't, because he means Batman, because he's heard about Batman. Because I don't think he's ever been out and seen Batman himself ever. The criminal comes out in his bomb vest and he's like, well, now we're all going to go together. And he's like, geez, it hurts to laugh. So it kind of gives me the impression that he's like, he almost feels like it's his duty to be the Joker. Like he's just got like some compulsion to carry out his acts as the Joker. And then the comedian shoots him in the head. And he's like, well, there's only one now. I give up. And lets Batman take him away. Jason's all like, well, Barbara, about that kiss. And Barbara's like, it's not important, okay? This is not what you think it is. And then Jim Gordon's like, you should not associate with the Red Hood. And Barbara's like, I know, Dad. So I guess in this timeline he knows. Or he knows now, anyway. The comedian explains that the criminal is like, he's just a lunatic for trying to make a better Joker, like the perfect Joker, seemingly to either lead them or to take over full time, almost as if it was like to relieve him of his, as I say, his like compulsion. So the comedian just set this all up so he could have Bruce for himself, essentially. And he even manufactured it because he knows who everyone is. He knows Bruce Wayne, he knows Jason Todd, he knows Barbara Gordon, and he set it up so that Joe Chill would be forgiven by Bruce, and it would heal his greatest pain, so that Joker could be his greatest pain, like, you know, you complete me and all that. And this is obviously the Killing Joke Joker, so he's the one that's like, oh, one bad day can ruin you. And he's the one that got chased into the pit by Batman. Batman's the one who did it. He's the one that paralyzed Barbara Gordon, and he was like, I'm going to prove that if Gordon has one bad day, he's going to go crazy like me. And it seems like the way this is set up, that he is the original Joker. And he's obviously the one with essentially the most depth, because he's got this backstory and he's like, oh my god, my family. And he misses his family in some respect. And at the end of the Killing Joke, Batman's like, you know, we can still pull you back out of this. And Joker's like, no, it's too late for me. And now he's saying that they'll die together, with him twisting the knife, or being the twisted knife in him, as long as he lives. So Bruce Wayne goes to see Joe Chill as himself, is with him when he dies, and meanwhile Jason leaves a note on Barbara's door like, oh, maybe we can be together and I'll renounce the Red Hood identity. Of course he's like, oh, if you don't want this, throw the letter away. He's basically saying, if you let me become dependent on you, then I can stop being the Red Hood. Which wouldn't have mattered anyway, because Barbara wouldn't have accepted that, would she? And, well, the letter doesn't get to her because it falls off the door and just gets swept into the bin. Which, I don't know, was that really necessary? And he's like, well, I've always loved you. Which I guess it can buy, but, like, would Barbara have even accepted that? I don't think she would have. So, is there really any point of us not knowing what she would have just gotten the note and thrown it away, like he says. But at the very, very end, Batman reveals to Alfred that he knows who this Joker is and has since a week of him becoming the Joker. His pregnant wife was like, I don't want to be with him, I think he's going to do something to me. And all the policemen are like, oh yeah, we pooled our money to like get you out of there, and then lie about you being dead. Like, if you think about it, it's very weird. Like, obviously, the point in The Killing Joke is that it was a crazy accident with a bottle heater, and it doesn't really make much sense that they would use that excuse. But at the same time, he never goes to see his wife in that comic, which makes me question, like, what would they have done if he did? But I'm sure they would have just made some excuse or something. I mean, rereading it now, it seems like the cop just came up with the bottle thing on the fly and it was just like, oh, it was a bottle heater. Which I guess is why it sounds so fucking stupid. Bruce basically ends it with like, oh, I know what his name is, but, you know, his name doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what his real name is, which is true, but I feel like that's kind of missing the point a little bit, because it's not his actual name that matters, it's his identity and, like, his backstory, because even in The Killing Joke, he's like, well, my backstory is multiple choice. But overall, I really did like how it shook up. Like, we ended up with one Joker, basically the best Joker that you could have ended up with, the most complex one. The Killing Joke, for me, is always, like, his canon origin as a comedian anyway, because, like, I mean, that's just what it is. Even in the Joaquin Phoenix movie, he's still a comedian. Like, he doesn't get chased into a vat of chemicals, but, like, in the main continuity, he obviously does. And The Killing Joke is canon, because Barbara Gordon gets shot. I guess how I'd put it is, he was a comedian 100%, and he got chased into the vat of chemicals as Red Hood 100%. Obviously, because that's what Red Hood's identity is based off of, because they know that that was Joker. Obviously, I'm not going to necessarily believe that this is canon. Not that it matters anyway, because there's only one Joker now. And the other two Jokers are basically time periods. Or I feel like they are, because the criminal especially, like, he's obviously the old, like, more campier Joker. The classic Joker from the original comics, whereas the Jason Todd clown Joker, that's, like, the one that's going off the rails and is super nuts. He's probably the one that, like, had his face cut off. The thing is, from a meta perspective, obviously there are different iterations of Joker from reboots and TV shows, so having that represented in a book like this is novel, although it doesn't really make actual sense, I feel like. But as for a rating, this book for me is probably a 9 out of 10. I definitely enjoyed it more than The Killing Joke itself, even though there's I mean, I really only like the backstory and seeing the man under the Joker in The Killing Joke. Everything else is kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it's fine, but it's like, it's more the influence than the actual book, like the reading of the book and all that. When I think about The Killing Joke, I just think about what it did. Whereas with this book, I can definitely see myself rereading this book because I did enjoy reading it. I liked the idea. I liked seeing all these sides of Joker and all these different Jokers and how this one thinks this way and, you know, stuff like that. I also like how it's like a meta explanation of why Jokers act differently in different time periods, even if, again, it doesn't totally make sense. Well, it's not that it couldn't make sense, but it's like, it's obviously not true. Like, the truth is that we have different writers and it just gets, everything gets rebooted. But it's like a weird, like, pseudo explanation. Basically, it's a super novel concept that I really enjoyed. There was a lot of exploration about the man behind Joker, which I found very interesting as well. I feel like it had better art than The Killing Joke, better action, more interesting premise. Honestly, I'd be super interested to see this as a movie, because that would just be amazing. Because this is also a celebration of pretty much all things Joker. Like, this is like, we are reminding you of Joker's best hits, and like, the only thing about this book is that Jason's kind of like he's such a down in the dumps, which I get it, but I felt like his dependency on Barbara was just kind of like, well, this isn't going to go anywhere, obviously. Definitely makes sense, and it makes sense to put it in this book, because it's like Jason seeing what happened to Barbara, how it's similar to what happened to him, and he's like, oh, that happened, and you got stronger from it, whereas I just kind of like went off the rails, you know? So it makes sense that he would admire her, even be in love with her, but it's just like, it's just a no at the end just feels like kicking him while he's down. Like, she was never going to be with him anyway. Like, that wasn't going to happen in any sense. Unless, of course, some writer's inspired by this, which is fine. It just doesn't seem like this door needed to be fully open. Like, you could have opened it a little bit. You didn't have to open it all the way. Like, oh, we can pick up on this. Like, we could have waited. You know, that could have been a different story where they really explore Jason's admiration for Barbara. But again, Barbara's just not interested, so what would be the point of that? I thought that Barbara was presented really well in this book, especially because she looks really good. Like, the art's amazing. But Barbara herself seemed very strong, and like they say, it's a lot of heart. I feel like there's something, the one thing that knocks down a point along with, you know, some of the weird things is just like, everything's said like, she's got a lot of heart, he's like this, you're him, you're this is that. But at the end of the day, it's still 9 out of 10. Fantastic book, would recommend. Honestly though, I'd really like Geoff Johns to handle like a different character in the future, like maybe one that isn't as popular. Like, it's Geoff Johns, like, surely you can get away with like a Scarecrow book or something probably more niche, preferably like Guy Gardner or just anything, any event book with anyone else. I know it's super easy for them to do Joker for obvious reasons, because he's popular and he's just like, there's so many pitches you can do, but I think with the Joker saga, Joker War saga, they were like, okay, this is the last one for a while. So I really do hope at some point in the future they announce a similar kind of book with a similarly interesting pitch about a non-Bat character at least. But we'll just have to see.